completed review packets will be due tomorrow before the test, and I'll use that as the extra credit. So on this first section, your constructions, I'm not going to ask you to physically use the compass on the test tomorrow. It will already be drawn for you. The construction will already be given. So just kind of look over your construction booklet for help. The key is if I ever see intersecting arcs, I don't know if y'all see that this arc here, these two arcs are intersecting. Intersecting arcs is showing some type of bisection. Okay, so if we see arcs intersect, then you're gonna have a bisector. You just have to know the difference between the two. So because we're looking at an angle in this picture, our ray that goes through that intersection right here, this BD, that is your bisector. So this would end up being the bisector. So a bisector cuts an angle into two congruent angles. Okay, so I can just number in the interior like angle 1, angle 2. These two angles will be congruent. So they just want to check which statement is true. If you look at statement 1 here, they're talking about the measure of angle ABD. So if I was just to trace that A to B to D here, that's my angle 1 that I labeled. Is that equal to 1/2 of angle CBD? So if I trace CBD, would angle 1 be half of 2? No, so that's false. So we're not going to pick this answer choice. What do we know about these two interior angles? They're equal. So if I look at the next answer choice, BD and the measure of angle BD is equal to CBD. There is our answer. Okay. So you're just having to find the true statement. So on 2 here, because they want to, which diagram shows a perpendicular bisector, would it be 1, 2, or 3?
1.
Yeah, it would be 1. Right there, I have 2 intersections right here. Okay, see the arcs intersect the 2 spots, and so that line that goes through that intersection is the bisector. All right. Okay, so from there, we're going to ask you, this goes with the first 3 pages of our unit, where you're having to read diagrams and analyze them and make conjectures. So the key to this is understanding your markings. That's the very first thing we did with the color coding. So they want you to list all the information given by the marks on the diagram. On the first one, the only marks are right here, these curves. We have arc marks. So the arc marks, this will mean you have congruent angles. So which angles are marked? So angle C is congruent to angle D. That's what you're listing based on that marking. Okay. So I'm going to focus on the odd in this packet. On some of the pictures, there's more than one answer or more than one fact that you're going to make a conjecture of. Like on 5, there's 3 markings here. The first mark is that box. Okay. That box means we have perpendicular or right angles. Perpendicular lines or right angles. So what I could state, give information based on that marking, I can say that this segment GF, where that box is at, okay, GF is perpendicular to the horizontal line. That line is right here, Z. So it's perpendicular to line V. Okay. All right, what other markings do y'all see? Okay, we got arrows and we got tick marks. Okay, so right here, I thought I had it on here, but maybe not. Oops, we have our, where's my tick marks? It's right there. There we go. Sorry, let me bring this down. There's the tick marks, right? So the tick marks means we have congruent segments. So that would mean that our GF, because that's where the tick mark is. It's on this segment GF, and it's on this segment over here, ED. So I could say GF is congruent to ED. And we also have the arrows. Yep, that's another one. Oops. That's not showing. There it is. All right, so your arrows are showing parallel. We also have these arcs right here. So that's showing congruent angles. So angle E would be congruent to angle D. And we have the arrows, which shows parallel. Okay, so that would be this line here. That's my line. I need to move this because I can't see it. Line U, okay. So I can just say U is parallel to T, where the arrows are on. So make sure you know all the different markings. We need to know arcs, we need to know what a box indicates, tick marks, and arrows. Okay. 5 pretty much embodies everything. That's why I like this problem. You can go now. All right, so from drawing or making conjectures from the markings, we're going to ask you to draw conclusions from the given information. So if you go to the next page, okay, this was, I think, the second paper in our unit. We had a worksheet that went with this. So on number 7, or in this section 6 through 8, I'm either going to give you a picture or I'm going to state it with words. So this is the given information. Angle A and B are supplementary. That's the key word. So what conclusion can I make if I know supplementary? Yeah, so then we can say this arrow is where we're going to draw the conclusion. The measure of angle A, plus the measure of angle B equals 180. And then in our box is the reason for our conclusion, our justification. What would be our reason here? Yeah, very good. Definition of supplementary angles. And I'm just going to abbreviate that. Okay, so I am going to ask you to draw some conclusions either based on a given statement or a picture. Okay, do we have questions on this section? Okay, and then I'm also going to ask you to determine true or false from a picture or statement. Okay, so if you look at here, it says right if the statement given is indicated by the marks on the diagram. So if we look at number 9, this is the statement. Okay, this is our statement given, where it says, hopefully you know that this symbol is angles. So they're showing us angle V, WU is congruent to VU. So this is stating we have 2 congruent angles. If my statement, if I'm talking about 2 congruent angles, then I need to see arc marks. And then if I look up here in this diagram, I do not have arc marks. So this would be false because there's no arcs. Are we okay on that one? Okay. So on 10, here's our statement where it says segment UQ. So if I go from U to Q, which is not on here, I guess that's supposed to. It's false. Yeah, it's false because it's not. The points are not on here. I thought it had UT and VT. So no, this is false as well. On 11 here, they're giving us perpendicular, so we have to see a box. But if I just go with the first segment right here, VU, this is the segment VU. It's missing the box. The box is over here, but it's not on the VU. So this is also false. Okay, no box. So whenever you get false, you're going to have to justify on your test. All right, and now we get into the orange photo ball. From the next 3 sections, you got to know everything on that orange photo ball. So please make sure you have this memorized. So you might want to refer to it because I'm going to ask you to know the meaning and the symbolic form. and then be able to apply that to an actual conditional. So the type of conditional, the name is in the first column. This is just the if-then form, and then the symbolic form. So they gave us the symbolic form of conditional. So we just need to say this. This is if P, then Q. Okay, so that's all we're doing, is filling in the missing part. So if I look at number 13 here, this row, it says if Q, then P. So that would be Q arrow P. Do we see that from our original statement P then Q, or P arrow Q, this was a switch? So anytime we have a switch or switching or a reverse, this is called a converse. So if I switch the order, that's called converse. Make sure you know, make sure you be able to switch, you physically switch it, or you can read to and determine if it's switched. So this next one says if not P, then not Q. Yep, they negated both. The key, the way I know it's a negation right off the bat is I see the word not. Okay, remember that goes with this symbol in front. So because they negated both, this is the inverse. Okay, an inverse negates both conditional, hypothesis and conclusion. Okay, so inverse, this is negating and switching, or negating both. Sorry. Contrapositive is negating and switching. So we're going to now negate and switch. So I already have not Q implies not P. So if not Q, then not P. So just remember, for contrapositive, negate and switch. So just make sure you have these memorized, because most of the questions for these, because it's vocab, will be multiple choice. So you either know it or you don't. You can't get partial credit on that. All right, and then we're going to get into vocabulary. This is also part of your orange photo, but also the blue photo. Okay, so a conditional statement. Okay, so you have the term, we're trying to match the actual definition with each one. So which one do you think is the first one for a conditional statement? Because we have you say PQ is true. H right here, this is, yeah, it is A. H here, if PQ is true and P is true, then Q is true. This one is what we did yesterday, which is law of detachment. H is actually 26. Yeah. It's your logical statement where you have a conclusion and a hypothesis. Yeah. So it's just, oops, where's my thing? Make sure I'm right. Yeah. So yeah, our first, just the conditional statement is just a logical statement. It is, 16, it is A. What about if-then form? That's your G, there we go. What part is the hypothesis? The first part, yeah. Yep, it is I. The first part of the conditional statement is the hypothesis. The conclusion comes when? After the second part, after the then, right? So that would be F. Okay. What is converse doing? Switching. There we go, B. What's negation doing? Yeah, it's like putting a not or creating an opposite. So which one would be negating? Let's see, writing a negative statement. What does inverse do? Where's K? Inverse is not switching the order.
L?
Yeah, it's the L. Contrapositive. What do you think contrapositive is doing? Negating, yep, and switching, yes, that's K. What about biconditional?
Z?
You say J formed by combining two conditionals? Yes, J. Counterexample. Yep, E proves false, and then F, you say. No, not F. E, sorry. Okay. So, basically, we're going to ask you to do each of these or identify these. Also on biconditional, just remember this is when we have if and only if, that symbol. That's on the orange foldable. So you will be asked to turn two conditionals into a biconditional statement. In order for that to happen, both the conditional and the converse has to be true. So they both have to be true. So if we look here, it says identify the hypothesis and the conclusion. Remember your hypothesis, that's the P, which is everything after if, okay? Your conclusion is your Q, everything after the word then. So if I was just doing the first one here, you do your geometry homework, that's the hypothesis. Okay? Everything after the word then, you will be a happy person. That's the conclusion. So you can, it will ask you on the test to underline or label P, the hypothesis, or label the part Q, the conclusion. So you will have to like do the labeling. All right? We have questions on this section, just identifying the parts. Okay. All right, so if we go to the next section, now we have to take the statement and put it into an if-then form. Write it as in a conditional. If I tell you a car has 4 wheels, we need to change this to if and then. So if what?
If you have a car that has 4 wheels.
Yeah, if you have a car, then it has 4 wheels. That's all we're doing. I can change the statement into if-then form. Okay. All right, then I'm going to ask you to determine the different types of conditionals. So you have to determine if you have a converse, an inverse, or a contrapositive. If you have a converse, that's just switching the order, Q, arrow, P. Inverse, this is when we negate both. So it'll be not P implies not Q. Contrapositive is negating and switching. So they're going to give you the conditional statement. If I look at, I'm going to do this first set. If I look at the first one here, it says if it's sunny, then I will go to the park. It is sunny. Oops, that's supposed to be green for me. That's my hypothesis. That's my P. I will go to the park. That's my conclusion. So then I read the next statement. It says, if it is not sunny, okay? Because I see the word not sunny, that means this is not P. Then it says, I will not go to the park, okay? So this would be not Q. So what type would this statement be?
Inverse.
Yep, this is inverse. Okay. This would be inverse. And the reason why I know it's an inverse, all right, is they negate it both. Okay. So we negate both parts. Now when I read 35 here, it says if you do not go to the park, okay, if I do not go to the park, that's not Q. Okay, then it's not sunny, that's not P. So what if I have not, but also I switch it? Yeah, that's contrapositive. So I will be giving you the statements from an original statement. You have to tell me which type of conditional it is. Is it a converse? Is it inverse? Is it contrapositive? Also, is it a biconditional? Okay. So on 37, okay, and 39, they 8 and 39, they have it in if then. But you might have to, like, because this is my statement, a square is a quadrilateral with 4 right angles. You might need to change it to if then. If a quadrilateral is a square, I think we did this one in our notes, then it has 4 right angles. So if I look at 37, a quadrilateral doesn't have 4 right angles. Okay. This would be not P. Sorry, not Q, the conclusion. It isn't a square, that's not P. So what is 37 as well? What type? Contrapositive, yeah. So just use your orange foldable for this section, like help just to verify, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go from, it's already gonna be written for you, to you will need to write it, okay? And I feel like you're missing, okay? So the conditional high school students are teenagers. The first thing we have to do is put this in an if-then form. So if what? If, how would I write high school students are teenagers? Yeah. Okay, if you are a high school student, so I'm just put HS for student, high school, comma, then you are a teenager. True or false? It could be false. So all the thing is we have to remember, if we say false, we have to give a counterexample. Well, it could be a counterexample.
Could he be older?
Okay, so maybe, okay, so they skipped some grades. Skip grades, graduate early, okay, or fail, okay. Okay. Left behind, okay, yeah, so we can have either one of those. Just like make sure if you say false, you just give the counterexample. That's the main thing, okay. So now taking this if then, we're gonna write the converse of that. So the converse means we're gonna have to switch it. Yes, the converse means we're doing a switch. Yep, if you are a teenager, comma, then you are a high school student. And we could say false, yes. What would be our counterexample? Drop out, okay. I mean, that's kind of cold, but yeah, that could happen, yeah. All right. So just make sure if you say false, you have to give a counterexample. Now, to do the contrapositive, This is when we switch it and negate it. Okay? So the converse is already switched. We just now need to negate. So we're going to say if you are not a teenager, comma, then you are not a high school student. Okay. That could be false or it could be true. We say false, what could be a counterexample? Not a teenager, but still a high school student. You could skip grades, same thing like the very beginning one. You could maybe graduate early, skipped a couple grades, got done with high school at 12. Okay. So, I mean, it's a possibility. Okay, so you're going to, most of them, I think on the test you only have to write one or two, but most of them are going to be written for you, but you have to determine, is it a converse, inverse, or contrapositive? Okay. All right, so that takes care of, and then biconditionals. Don't forget, you still have to know biconditionals. So then the last part of our logic unit is our deductive reasoning, is the two laws from yesterday. Law of detachment and then law of syllogism. So for detachment, the order matters. You're going to give one conditional statement, P arrow Q, if it's true, and then you restate P, then you can conclude the conclusion, the Q. So the order, it has to go in order. You can't go from P, then state Q, and then state P again. You have to start with P, restate it, and then conclude. Yes?
Do we need to work this out?
It's up to you. Okay. So it's to help check if it's been reinstated or if it's using the law of syllogism, because syllogism has two conditionals. Make sure you identify the parts of the conditional, the hypothesis and conclusion, the P and the Q. Because if I look at the 44, it says, if a student is enrolled in Dulles, so a student enrolled in Dulles is the P. The student has an ID card, that's the Q. So then when I read the second statement, it says Matt Wonder is enrolled in Dulles. That is restating the P again. So they concluded Matt Wonder has an ID card. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes. So this is a valid conclusion. So this is valid. And it's valid by detachment. They use detachment to make that conclusion because they restated the P. Now, on 45, all pilots must pass a physical. It might help to put it in if-then first. So, if you are a pilot, then you must pass a physical. So, you are a pilot, that's the hypothesis. You must pass a physical, that's the conclusion, that's the Q. Jane Doe must pass a physical. Is that the P or the Q that's restated?
Q.
Yep, that is restating the Q. So can I conclude Jane Doe is a pilot? No. This is out of order, this is invalid. Okay? All right, so the difference between detachment and syllogism is detachment only has one conditional statement, where syllogism has two. This is the one where we have to check that the middle part right here, see how they both have Q in common? So Q is in common, and we're going to take that part out. and just go from P to R. So if I look, 46 is the one. So if I look here, William is reading is the P. He's reading a magazine, that's the Q. William reading a magazine, that's Q again. He's reading a magazine about computers, that's R. So they both have this Q in common. So they took it out and should say from P to R. If William's reading, then he's reading a magazine about computers. So that is valid by syllogism. Okay. And then the last part, we're still going to ask you to problem solve with angles. So the last section, 48 through I think it's 51, is making sure you know your angle pairs and understanding what bisect means. Okay. So you make sure we can still write an equation and we can solve for x and plug it in. So on 48, the key word is they say NP, this ray NP bisects the angle M and Q. So the ray is missing. We just need to draw NP and know that if it bisects, we have two congruent angles. Or it cuts the whole angle in half. So the NP is doing the cutting in half. All right. They gave us on here that MNP. So if I'm just going MNP, this is this part, 6x minus 12. And that P and Q, that is 4x plus 8. They want you to find M and Q. M and Q is the whole angle. So first, use your two congruent parts to set up your equation, solve for x, then plug it back in. Okay? You need to write an equation for x, solve it, plug it in. Does anyone know what the equation would be for here? Yeah, good. 6x minus 12 equals 4x plus 8. There we go. Plug it, solve for the x, and plug it back in. Then all you need to do is double it to get the whole angle, because each part is going to be the same. So it doesn't matter which one you plug it back in. Okay. And then on the last page here, some more special types of angles. Either I'm going to tell you with the actual term, with the actual verbiage, the word. So like on 49, we have two complementary angles. That's the key word. What does complementary mean? Yeah, they equal 90. Have a sum of 90. So that means my angle A plus my angle B equals 90 degrees. So that helps me set up my equation. So either I'm going to tell you in the word, in the description, in the given information, or I want you to be able to look at the picture. So like, look at 50. What type of angles are shown? No, not adjacent. Yeah, there are vertical angles shown. They're across from each other. So your vertical angles are congruent. So your 5x is going to equal the x plus 16. Jason, get this down. We're on the other page. And on 51, what type of angle pair is shown here? Be a little bit more specific. Yeah, it's a linear pair. Yeah. Linear pairs are supplementary. Okay. So it means it's going to equal 180. So here, I could take the obtuse angle, which is the 7x plus 10, add it to the acute that it's adjacent to, which is the 3x, and then equal 180. Make sure you combine your like terms first and solve for x. So on the bottom two, I just want you to solve for X, and then at the very bottom, just some hints and some things to help you study. I would probably take the spiral home, look at your foldables, okay? The orange and the blue are the main ones, and then test this tomorrow. Completed reviews, so I only did the odds and a couple other ones, but the completed reviews I'm using for extra credit because I don't think there's a bonus on the test. I gotta double check. Okay. Do you have any questions?
Are you
Yes.
supposed to check this?
Yeah, I'm gonna stamp that. Mhm.